Hello, I'm Tom Schmidt, Managing Editor for IDG Strategic Marketing Services. And today I have the great privilege of welcoming to the Business Value Exchange Michael Friedenberg, CEO of IDG Communications Worldwide. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
Good. Michael, as you know, every year IDG conducts a number of highly regarded surveys that do a great job of showing how the IT landscape is constantly evolving, and moreover, how high-level IT pros are constantly navigating technology choices. In just the last 2 months alone, we've seen the release of three of these in-depth studies: the 2016 State of the CIO, the 2016 State of the Network, and the 2016 Computerworld Forecast Study. I was hoping we could dig into those studies a bit today and get your thoughts on some of the most important trends. So let's begin with the State of the CIO Survey. If there's one clear takeaway from this year's report, it's that CIOs are under more pressure than ever before. Cloud, mobility, big data, and social have many companies in a state of continuous change. What does this new way of doing business mean for the CIO? And how does the need to transform IT in order to execute new business strategies, how does that change the CIO's role?
Yeah, Tom, I think in today's marketplace, what everybody is focused on now is growth, and it's all about growth. So, whereas in years past, CIOs were always talking about efficiencies and operations, the mantra from CEOs and boards are right now, how can you drive business outcomes that are deepening engagement with your customers and also driving revenue growth and performance growth across the organization? And historically, those metrics have always been quite traditional, but given the whole movement towards digital transformation, what you're finding is that CIOs are really being judged on new metrics now than the traditional metrics. So UI has shifted to UX, user experience. Scale is no longer about physical scale, it's about virtual scale. The ability to be creative and understand how you're partnering with your line of business partner to fulfill upon the innovations that they're having at a departmental level. And then also data. How are they leveraging data, not just securing data, not just also securing and storing data, but then what are the insights that that data is providing? So what are the right questions to ask? What's the intelligence that's being taken out of that data? So to me, right now, it's really shifted from the CIO being an operational efficiency type of focused executive to one that's much more transformational and a much more business strategist than ever before.
Interesting, interesting. Well, that leads directly into my next question, which is one of the issues that the CIO survey highlights is the ongoing IT skill shortage, particularly at enterprise organizations. Um, how are forward-looking CIOs and enterprises addressing that? And the survey suggests that when CIOs and business leaders agree on the role of IT and have a strong partnership, that it might be easier for CIOs to find the people they need for some of these transformation efforts that you're talking about. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm a big believer, and Peter Drucker used to always say this as well, is that talent trumps strategy, right? So
Right.
it's just a matter of getting the right people in place to do what the organization wants to accomplish. And aligned with talent, the only thing that beats talent is culture. So culturally, you need to have an IT organization and IT talent that is really aligned to the persona of what the CEO wants out of IT. So
Hmm.
if your CEO of an organization thinks that IT is a cost center, then it doesn't make sense to have talent that thinks they're going to leverage technology that's going to push them forward as a business strategist or a transformational agent.
Right.
You need to be aligned with the culture that the CEO is driving throughout the organization. So I think it's really important that your technology strategy and your technology talent is aligned to ultimately what your CEO sees technology moving forward to drive either change or operations or efficiency throughout your organization. And then once you understand that clearly, then you'll be able to bring on the talent that truly aligns with the overall business strategy of the organization.
Interesting. Very interesting. Let me switch gears a little bit. It seems that each year we hear that the CIO's focus on security is at an all-time high, year after year after year. Uh, and yet high-profile breaches continue. how are the security stakes changing? And is this another case where a stronger IT business partnership could make a difference?
Well, absolutely. The alignment between business and technologists and the IT organization are absolutely essential. Specific to security, though, what I find fascinating is that over the past year, there have been some pretty high profile breaches, but it finally took the Sony breach to make security a board level conversation, right?
Exactly.
So all of a sudden, a couple of people's salaries get released, and a couple of certain situations then have, uh, quite frankly, global economic impact between North Korea and the United States, and it really ramped itself up to where boards made security a conversation for the first time ever.
Hmm.
And given that it's elevated to the board level now, security has really become a risk conversation, risk management
Hmm.
conversation. So now what you have happening is based upon board level CEO attention to security, how does that then permeate throughout the organization, not only from a technology perspective, but also, as I talked about earlier, a cultural perspective of how security has to be important to every individual throughout the organization. And that's how it's manifested itself over the past year. So, whereas it used to be just a technology conversation
Hmm.
or even a managerial business level conversation, security has become a board level conversation now.
Exactly. And that makes all the difference, clearly.
It really does.
Michael, let's turn now to the latest state of the network study. And it says that cloud computing is going to reach a tipping point this year, with more than 60% of the survey respondents saying they'll increase cloud-related spending in 2016. The expansion of cloud brings challenges and complexities as well as benefits to IT. How do you see this playing out as you talk to leading tech companies and IDG's customers?
Well, cloud is very different on a global level, right? It really depends on the region that you're talking about specific to cloud. I'll give you an example. For instance, in the EU, the regulations around data and data sharing are much more stringent than they are in the United States, and the penalties are much more stringent.
Hmm.
So, how cloud is being adopted in certain EU countries is different than how it's really being adopted here in the United States. We're seeing
Hmm.
a massive adoption of cloud technologies in the United States, and that's either from a private cloud perspective, public cloud, or a hybrid
Hmm.
cloud perspective. But the different flavors of cloud are certainly being adopted much more aggressively here in the United States. When you start going over into Europe uh, and certain Asian countries, private cloud is looked upon on premise is absolutely being looked upon much more favorably than a public cloud solution. And that's all driven by security and right, wrong, or indifferent. The security conversation comes up very, very quickly as you're talking about cloud solutions. The other issue that really is coming into play now is cloud management because you're looking at different silos of cloud solutions that are coming, and everybody's trying to now figure out how 1 plus 1 equals 3 rather than 1 plus 1 equaling 2. And
Hmm.
if you have an HR cloud solution, a sales or CRM cloud solution, a database cloud solution, etc., how do you actually get all those systems to talk to one another? And that's the next big hurdle that I think you're going to start to witness in the cloud adoption rate.
Got it. Got it. Michael, the Internet of Things or IoT is getting a lot of press,
Hot topic right now. Yeah.
but the network study found that just 17% of respondents say IoT efforts are underway today. In fact, 47% say they have no plans for IoT at all. Is that surprising, or is this just early stages?
It's not surprising at all. In fact, Tom, if you look back at when we did the studies on cloud computing about 5, 6 years ago,
Hmm.
everybody said, "Oh, we're never going to actually adopt. It looks interesting, it looks intriguing," but the adoption rate was actually dragging behind, right?
Yeah.
So I think what you're finding now with IoT is interest that will then spur itself into adoption. You have to remember that the number of connected devices is actually going to explode over the next, I would say, 5 years. IDC is predicting going from 10 billion connected devices to 22 billion connected devices in the next 2 years. And
Wow.
then by 2020, it will be 50 billion connected devices.
Yeah.
So as that starts to expand, then what will happen with all that information that's being collected, the ecosystems that are going to be formed out of Internet of Things will start to grow. So I do think it's a real industry, but it hasn't hit that tipping point that cloud computing has hit
Yeah,
just yet. But it takes a little bit of time. So right now it's interest. Interest will grow into adoption.
interesting. Um, Finally, let's hop over to the Computerworld Forecast Study. It finds that IT organizations have finally reclaimed ground that they lost in the Great Recession, and that more respondents expect their IT budgets to increase in the next 12 months than to stay the same. What are your thoughts about this, what they call a cautious budgetary optimism?
I can't imagine any organization being relevant in the next decade if they're not investing aggressively in technology. And I'll give you the reason why. The hottest topic right now at a CEO level is the philosophy and the strategy of digital transformation,
Hmm.
the ability to digitize and digitalize your business.
Yeah.
And every CEO right now is really focused on that. In fact, IDC actually reports that by next year, 60% of all CEOs will have digital transformation as their number one priority. So if you're going to actually truly transform your organization into a digital operation, you need to invest in technology. You're talking about a $2.5 trillion market worldwide that is showing budgets increasing by about 6% overall on a worldwide basis. So very healthy market. You're actually seeing companies invest because of their fear of being disrupted, right? So either disrupt yourself or then be disrupted. So that's what's actually unfolding right now in the marketplace. If I can equate it to the 17th century where we went through our own industrial revolution, I think that's what we're about to embark upon right now. We are living our own industrial revolution. Some call it the industrial internet,
All right.
some call it the internet revolution, whatever you want to call it. That is what we're about to see because every economy, every business, every job function is going to change based upon how the internet and how digital is changing the way the user experience is and how you engage with your customers. So that's what most companies are thinking through, and that now has to then spread from all the way to the top levels of the organization throughout the bottom of the organization and out across your entire value chain. And the only way that happens is investment in technology.
Fascinating. Thank you. I think we have time for one last question. I want to close with a quote from the Computer World Study, which said there's an ongoing trend of moving even business critical applications into the cloud, with cloud projects being the single most important technology initiative right now and expected to cause the most disruption in the future. Can I get your closing thoughts on that major change?
Yeah, I would say in agreement with one caveat,
Hmm.
making sure that everything is secure, right? So if those mission critical applications are going to move into the cloud, then I personally think the cloud vendors need to do what they are doing right now is investing millions, if not billions of dollars into their security solutions. And what the user community is quickly realizing is that there's no way that they're going to be able to outspend the cloud providers in what they're investing in security. So I think security is quickly going to go from a concern to actually something of an advantage because of the amount of investment that the vendor community is making in security versus the user community's ability to invest in security. So when that tipping point occurs, then you'll see mission critical applications move into the cloud quite aggressively.
Aggressively. Well, that's about all the time we have today. Michael Friedenberg, thanks so much for taking time to talk with us. Very interesting and always illuminating.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me.
For the Business Value Exchange and IDG, this is Tom Schmidt. See you again soon.